कीर्तन सीधे हम समझे कि वो है निगत, पता चला निगत की बहन है शायद, बड़ी बहन।
क्या कहते हैं?
नहीं कुछ नहीं, हम तो समझ लो वही, लेकिन
बात हो गई थी, मतलब संभल गए थे ना, मतलब नहीं दिया था। चलिए अब चलिए जिफरी ट्रैक पे सीधे चलिए।
We will come and talk to that individual, we'll identify that individual, we'll let you know, hey, they're here for this reason, or they don't really have a good reason that makes sense to us why they've come here today. And if you want them to leave, we'll escort them out. But at least we'll have an idea, we'll know who that person is. So again, if you're comfortable with 1, 2, or 3 of you talking to somebody, I mean, this is a good place to be. You have very open hearts and you're very good people. And still 99% of the people in our society are good people. You never know why somebody's coming around. But if you don't feel comfortable and you want somebody, you want police to talk to somebody, anybody can call the police department. And you know us, we're always around the corner. This isn't the biggest city, so we can come and talk to that individual. I still believe 99% of society are good people. But a lot of people are struggling, especially after the pandemic and everything else, and jobs and money. Inflation's through the roof right now. And some people they're uncomfortable speaking to others. They're uncomfortable with reaching out or anything like that. Even to a group of strangers, they know this is a place of worship and that usually you have open hearts and you're willing to help out anybody who requires it. But some people they're ashamed to ask or they're afraid to ask. So they kind of might just sit on the outside and kind of observe you for a while to see, is this a place I can approach them to ask for help or not? But meanwhile, you're looking at them and not knowing why they're here. And even though they have good intentions, well, you don't know that until you have a discussion with that person, right? So again, if you be vigilant, pay attention to your surroundings. If you feel comfortable with a group of you or just one of you speaking to an individual, please do so. If you don't, call us. That's why I have a job. That's why I'm here. And I have a little bit more protection that I wear and everything else with all of our stuff that we feel comfortable engaging with those people. And again, we'll talk to you and see, hey, this is why they're here. Do you want them here, yes or no? And if you don't, we'll escort them off the property. Do you have questions?
Yes. What would be in general, what would be a good evening line when we decide to have a talk? What would be the virtual?
I would say, I would call it old school, where you discuss, just walk up, hello, I'm Nick Klein, welcome to the Civic Center. Is there anything I can help you with? Just introduce yourself and see what they're looking for. Maybe they give you an answer, maybe they kind of mumble and walk away. Either way, that might solve the problem right there. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
No problem. But again, if you're uncomfortable, please contact the Solon Police Department. We'll come talk to you for them. Is there any questions about any other types of threats to look for or anything like that?
What would be the response time, say, if he identified like some,
So everybody can hear.
yeah, say, we identify some suspect, but we are not sure, right? So we called police department. What would be the response time and what action that police can take? Do they come in to kind of?
Typically, when we get a call, hey, we call it suspicious person. A suspicious person sitting in their car in the parking lot.
Mhm.
If they're not committing a crime, and just sitting in your parking lot is not a crime.
Right.
We don't come lights and sirens for that. Typically, they'll send 1 or 2 officers, and depending where they're at in the city, what time of day, how busy traffic is, will depend on our response time. But we're pretty good to be there within about 5 minutes. Even, daytime, about rush hour, we can be there pretty quickly.
Thank you. Yeah.
And when we do show up, will give us a good description of that individual, so we know what we look for. But if we don't see anybody initially that stands out from what our dispatchers told us, we may come and ask whoever called us, what did you see? Did they go anywhere or anything like that? So the response time, I would still say pretty quick. It's not like Cleveland where there's constant calls for service that are unfortunately way more violent than what we have here in the city. So we can be there pretty quick. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Talking about suspicious activity, and if person, let's say we spot somebody in the parking lot. So can you give us a list of the things that can be suspicious at that point? And what are the things that we have to look for somebody to be suspicious?
Yeah, so suspicious actions are subjective. What I may find suspicion, you may not, or vice versa. We all have our kind of how we operate throughout our day. I don't sit in bank parking lots at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? I don't go do my banking business at 3 in the morning. So when I see a car with a person in it sitting at a bank at 3 o'clock in the morning, to me that's suspicious. So I don't think most people, almost everybody knows banks aren't open at 3 in the morning. Especially if they're not at the ATM or something like that. So those people I'll engage, I'll go talk to them at 3 in the morning. But if I see a car sitting outside KeyBank at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday, I'm not going to go talk to that person because that's normal behavior. So I'd say anything that's outside of normal behavior. And again, that's subjective. That's different for all of us. But given this individual house here, you know what the daily activities are. And when you see things that people aren't doing as part of the daily activity, that wouldn't be suspicious to you,
So officer, just, I want to, because we've had a couple of incidents, security incidents, so I want to kind of ask you a couple of scenarios to see if you would enlighten us what the best line of action is if we're looking at the right thing. The first scenario, if we have a car that we cannot identify in our parking lot in an awkward time, are we supposed to approach? If we have one brother coming in his car, is he supposed to come close to that car, roll the window down and talk to that individual? Would you recommend that?
Again, that depends on the individual's comfort level. Some people would be comfortable speaking to that individual, others would not be. I would say if you're not comfortable, come inside, speak to other people. Hey, does anybody know who's sitting in this car over here? Maybe somebody else does, and that kind of solves the problem right there. But if nobody else knows, then maybe the group will say, hey, let's call the police to go talk to that individual. Or, hey, how about me and you? We'll go speak to that individual. You guys keep getting set up for the daily activities.
Okay. So after you approach the individual, if the individual looks at you and is nonverbal, which means he does not answer your questions and drives away, would that be suspicious to you? And what do we do next?
I would say that's probably a little bit suspicious. If you go to speak to somebody and they just look at you and drive away, I would roll my window down and speak to you. Because obviously you're looking to speak to me. So, hi, sorry, I'm just looking at my GPS, trying to figure out where I'm going. And then maybe I leave. If someone just looked at you and drive away, I would find that a little suspicious. In that case, I would at least try to get the license plate number of the vehicle, maybe make a model description of the driver. And as you watch it drive away, you contact police then, and that's something we can keep an eye out for.
Now, the executive committee has installed 2 or 3 cameras, I believe, in our parking lot that you can tell the license plates of the cars.
Okay.
Okay, just so you know, and I think they're positioned in strategic positions where as you walk in, you can see the car coming in. And the only reason I mentioned this, I want the whole community to feel like, you know, there are some measures in place for the security zones.
Okay.
We do have for big gatherings on Fridays and other special gatherings, we do have a visible police officer available. What about joggers or people that are jogging or coming just to do a walk? Because you know the premises is pretty big here and it's very enticing and very beautiful outside. That should not be a suspicious issue, right?
If they look like a jogger, if they're wearing jogging clothes, but if they're wearing jeans and a sweatshirt and it's 90 degrees outside, I would say it's a little bit more suspicious than a typical jogger or anything like that. Or
What about if they jogging at 4 o'clock in the morning? No, that was a joke.
that actually happens.
Don't answer. Okay, and then the other thing is, what about individuals that want to enter the premises that are not known to our communities? And they have a backpack on. And you know, as you know, the only reason I ask this is because from what I'm getting from you, please, if the audience doesn't agree with me, is that we shouldn't approach anybody by ourselves. It should be 2 or 3 people approaching any suspicious situation. You would agree with that, right?
Oh yeah, I'd say safety or numbers.
Yes. So what about individuals that have a backpack and are trying to enter uninvited? What do we do there? Does the backpack, I mean, it's hard, as you said, we were having a conversation with you before the session started. We still believe the majority of our society are good folks, so we can't suspect everybody around the corner. But like a backpack to me kind of might present a potential weapon hiding place. You know, those are the kind of things we were looking for to see what your recommendations is.
Backpacks, yes, they can carry a variety of weapons, unfortunately. It almost comes down to your policy, whether you allow backpacks or not. If somebody's subject to search, once they enter, because this is private property, you can set policies in place. You can install metal detectors if you so please to do so. You could have a sign that says no backpacks allowed, please leave your backpack in your car or something like that.
No soliciting signs.
Yes, you got no soliciting signs. There's
I mean, the
different ways.
good part about our community, really, everybody knows everybody. Yes, we're a good number, but everybody knows everybody. You are bound to find somebody that knows that.
Yeah, I've worked there several times. I can tell somebody always knows somebody.
Oh, yeah.
So if nobody knows somebody in the parking lot or standing in the corner, I would find that somewhat suspicious, that nobody here has any idea who that person is. Yeah, I would advise calling us if nobody feels comfortable approaching that individual. As a police officer, I'm always watching for hands. We watch hands constantly because the hands is what hurt us. So if somebody's wearing a backpack and they have their hands like this, are they a threat to me? Not really, no, because I can see their hands. And if I'm speaking to somebody that's close, and if he wants to move his hands to his pockets, I'm right here to deal with that situation. I can stop that individual from doing that.
I will.
What are the actions, say, may Allah forbid, you know, may not happen here, but what if somebody get in and then get into action? What do we do? Just run away?
Somebody has a physical weapon.
Right.
We see that.
Yeah.
It's not only bags, it's visible.
Yeah, bags are tricky. I don't know, do normally people bring backpacks into the building?
They do, but I think what the brothers are asking more, if we have an individual that was able to get in the building and has a light weapon, which is a knife, or an active weapon, which is a pistol, what do we do? Do we tackle? Do we run? Do we get a 300-pound person to sit on him?
That's another subjective.
that's
More actionable.
That's another subjective thing right there. I'd always advise everyone to basically to run away, get as far away from the individual as possible. If somebody feels like they're close enough and they have the skill set and they're comfortable in engaging with that individual physically, and they choose to do so, then they choose to do so. And you never know what you're going to do until you're in that moment. We can game plan all day long. I'm always picturing incidents in my head. What would I do in case somebody pulled a gun or pulled a knife or punched me in the face? Well, I would do this, but then that person does something different that I didn't plan on. So it's hard to say what I would do in that particular instance. Some people might fight, some people may flee. It's on that individual, how close they are, how much of a threat. Some people would just stay there because of the shock of what their brain's trying to process of an incident like that. Some people just stop and freeze. You never know until you're in that situation. If the threat was in the room right here with me, I don't know what I would do. If I'm in the next room over and I hear gunshots coming from this room, maybe I go out the door. Maybe I throw a chair through the window and try to get out the window. It depends what your circumstances are and where that threat is in close proximity to. I'd say if you have an avenue to leave, leave. Get out of the building for sure. But
Well, I mean, I think the good news for the atrium here, we have 2 doors, and even for the musalla, which is the place we created, the hall we created, there's 2 doors to exit. So that's good news, and even the kitchen has an exit door, so that all is exits to kind of disperse through. But we just wanted to see what the recommendation.
I mean, if you're my threat and I'm right here, my actions may be different than his because he's 50 feet away. They have a table in front of them to separate them from the threat. Their action may be completely different than mine at this point. I don't know. Do you feel comfortable and you want to try to take the person down, and that's your choice at that moment, you'll find out that moment.
And I want to share with the community that Officer Nick here gave us a phone number for a company that we can hire and give us a risk assessment of what we have and what we can do to do better. I think also the chief of police, after we met with them, did give us another company. So I will discuss it with the EC and see what people feel like doing.
Yeah, there's always outside resources to use where they'll come in and physically look at your building, what doors are open all the time, where the cameras are at, what's the backpack policy? Do you allow people to bring firearms into the building that are not law enforcement? They discuss all these issues with you and they see what are your goals? What do you want done? Do you just want one uniformed police officer at the door, or do you want one outside, one inside? You want somebody in plain clothes that you can't identify as a law enforcement officer immediately? They discuss all these with you, and if that's something, they'll go whatever route you would like to see from you. So.
Okay. Anybody has any questions online? Maybe some people.
yeah, just
Was there some questions online that you wanted to mention?
does anybody have questions from the Zoom? Anybody have any questions? Zaidi bhai, Asad bhai? Okay, so only 2 minutes. All right.
So, Officer, after much discussion, we put this sign up at the entrance. Okay. No trespassing and patrons and. So this is what we have. This is what we have at the entrance, both sides of the.
Yeah.
Right? Both sides of our entrance. So it says private driveway and surveillance. That means invite people to trespass. But we get into this discussion about what does that mean? And we've had some folks that are a little more energetic and say, you can't let anybody in. You got to stop everybody. So what rights does the property have as far as somebody that's walking around and, you know, like you said, we find something suspicious, we wouldn't approach that person, you know, confrontationally if you don't find him, especially like we talked about instances where somebody's jogging or walking the dog or just walking around with a phone, and we know that guys just across the street or something. But if that's not the case, what are the rights that the people who are here, who are members and patrons, what rights do they actually have to say what they need to say?
So this being private property, you have the right to admit anybody or refuse admittance to anybody. If I'm a jogger and I don't see any signs at the entrance that restricts my movement onto the property, maybe I jog down your driveway, take a lap and then back out. But if I'm a jogger and I see a sign that says no trespassing, if I'm not a member of this house, then that would tell me as a reasonable person, well, I'm not allowed to just go jogging on there, because they set restrictions. If I had business here, if I was a member here, or I had business to conduct with you, I would feel free to come on the property because I have business. But if I don't have any business with you, I'm not a member of this place, I wouldn't feel that I'm just allowed to walk on your property and do whatever it is I want. So when you see people who are here, who don't have any business here, you can have them removed. Listen, you're not a member, you have no business here, we'd like you to leave. And they would have to leave. And if they don't, that's when the police get involved. And that person could be arrested for trespassing at that time.
So the request comes before the police is called, right?
You can almost do it simultaneously. Or if you don't want to approach the individual, you call us. We'll talk to that individual. And if we determine that person has no business being here, well, listen, they have signs posted that there's no trespassing. You have no business being here, you need to leave. If they don't want to leave, we will escort them out by any means necessary. Kind of like having the concealed weapons signs and doors, you see like grocery stores, things like that. If you don't want weapons in the building, because now you can carry a gun concealed, you put those in your doors. But furthermore, this is one of the protected properties. It's like City Hall or a courthouse. You can't just carry a gun in here. You're allowed, the board's allowed to have members carry guns in here concealed, as long as you know who they are and you give them permission to do so. The average person, though, without permission to bring a gun on this property is not allowed to do so. So depending on your policies, if you want people to carry firearms, have that discussion with that person. Hey, we don't have a problem with you doing it. But if you catch somebody else, maybe you don't want that person doing it. Hey, listen, you're not allowed to carry a gun here. Don't bring it anymore. And if they do bring it, that's a violation of law. You can contact us and we can deal with that individual at the time. But to begin, you're not allowed to carry a gun anywhere on these grounds. But you can give permission to do so to certain individuals if you'd like. So the trespass and the video surveillance is great. It's a deterrent. Like I leave my house lights on at nighttime to my front door or my garage to deter people, because criminals, they want to be in the shadows and be in the darkness. They don't want others to see what they're doing. So I leave my lights on. So if they're going to break into my front door, there's a light there and a camera, and that just deters people from doing stuff like that. So I've been on your property at nighttime. I've taken some laps around here at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's very lit up. You can see every camera. All the doors are lit. And most times we'll walk around and pull on your doors just to ensure that they're locked. And if we find something unlocked, we can contact you, say, hey, the door's unlocked. We're going to check the building, make sure nobody's inside, nobody broke in or anything like that. So the sign's a great step, but it's just a deterrent. Some people will see it and not pay attention to it and come on. So that's where the vigilance comes in. And that's where people are doing what they're supposed to do around here, or they just kind of stay in the corner, not really paying attention to anything, and nobody knows who they are. So I think that's a great first step there to have that sign at the entrance.
Does anybody have any more questions for Officer Klein?
Yeah, I personally asked Zaidi Bhai and he don't have any questions.
Okay. Just for the general body of the community, I must thank the Solon Police Department. We did meet with the chief a while ago, and they did increase the frequency of the patrol cars, as Officer Nick here was mentioning to you guys. They go by the premises every 10-15 minutes, which is very appreciative. Actually, it happened to me. I was coming for Salat al-Isha during the summer, and I was the only car coming in, and what I have is a police officer right behind me. He's like, are you going in there? Yes, sir, I am. So it made me feel more comfortable and more secure. So I can't thank you guys enough. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming over and talking to us, and hopefully we'll stay in touch. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks for the work that you do for us.
Yeah, really.
No, thank you. Actually, to elaborate a little bit, when our response to these situations, because we respond with force, and unfortunately, we have to respond with violence sometimes. Some places, they allow their people to carry guns in here. When we get these calls, we're looking for people with guns. And they blend into you guys. They're not in full police uniforms walking around committing these acts. So if I come around the corner and I see somebody with a gun, I'm going to focus on that individual. And if they turn as a threat to me, I'm going to shoot at that person. We almost like military. We come with rifles. We may have extra backpacks with us, with medical supplies, extra ammunition. So fortunately, these incidents can last a very, very long time. They're very stressful. It's the one call, well, several calls. This is the call I don't ever want to be on. It's one I don't ever want to hear come over the radio. I'm a father of 3, so the school shootings really bother me. And those are something I don't ever want to have to partake in. But if those calls come in, we don't just sit and wait. And this is probably something you guys should know. If I'm the first officer here, I'm not waiting for another officer or 2 officers. I'm coming in alone. And my whole job is to find that suspect, find that person that's killing people, and stop them immediately. So if there's people on the floor, if they're screaming for help, they've been shot, they're bleeding, they need help, I have to bypass that person. I can't stop and help them. I have to go find that threat and eliminate that threat for everybody. And once that threat's down, then I'll start paying attention to the victims and start trying to help medically as best as I can. We run what's called a rescue task force program here. It's basically to get paramedics into these scenes sooner than later. Because the average person on an arterial bleed can bleed out in about 60 seconds. Fire departments don't show up that fast. So to help get them in sooner, fire department will be like 2 or 3 paramedics will come in with 2 police officers. And those police officers are the bodyguards for the fire department. And they will start dealing with victims as they run into it. But until that threat is found and eliminated, whether they're taken into custody in handcuffs or they are somehow eliminated, we don't stop looking for that individual. So one thing I just incorporated in our department is we carry packs with extra bleeding control kits, the tourniquets, chest seals, combat gauze, things like that. It's not a bad idea to have your own bleeding control kits here. You can mount them like an AED, you can mount them on the wall. Tourniquets are fantastic. Chest seals are great. So we're talking about gunshot wounds, people bleed out. So you want things that will help with that bleeding. If you go to the House of Worship safety briefing from the OCPA, they may discuss some of that stuff. I know with big security, they will also, they can get you CPR certified through university hospitals. They actually provide a class to get people CPR certified. And you can pretty much go online and buy any bleeding control kit that suits your needs. But the more of those stuff you have on scene, the better. Because we only have limited supplies. And again, if I'm first here, I'm looking for that threat. I'm unfortunately not able to help any victims. Which could be difficult for an officer too. We don't want to see any more carnage than anybody else. And we're people too. That sort of stuff, the Uvalde school shooting, I can't begin to tell you how heartbreaking that is. I got a 10th grader in 5th grade. And 4th graders were shot. So that's extremely upsetting for us. So when we come in, I had to see your hands, right? You show me empty hands, you're not a threat to me, I'm gonna move on. If you're hiding your hands or they're in your pockets, I don't know if you're a threat or not. I don't know if you have a gun on you or not. I can't read your mind. I don't know what your intentions are. So if an incident were to occur and the police are coming in, we're gonna yell, show me your hands, hands up, face the wall. We're gonna give you directions on what to do. If we just bypass you and don't speak to you, so be it. We're obviously focused on something a little bit more serious than you kind of standing there in the corner. But it's a very stressful environment for us too. We get tunnel vision too. The sound, our hearing decreases, our tunnel vision comes in. So if anything were to come in and you see police officers coming in with guns, especially out of the holsters or rifles on, please, we want to see everybody's hands, okay?
Hmm.
Good, good
That's a
advice.
good to know.
Good advice. Go.
Yeah, take a moment.
Since there will be a lot of young children here, hopefully very near future, any particular advice, for 10 or younger, whether we don't want this to happen but what would be the first thing, like whether take them to a specific room, like should we have a room available ready at all time, or what would be the first if we feel like there's a threat?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. People, they've done studies on school shooters, and the people who could get into a classroom easily, those are the classrooms they went in and shot them. The classrooms where doors were barricaded and locked and they couldn't get into fairly easily just by maybe putting their shoulder into the door, they moved on until they found an open door. It's kind of like a lot of the car thefts we've been having lately. People go around, they just pull the door handle, and the car that opens, that's the car they rummage through and steal from. And unfortunately, some have their key fobs in their cars. Don't do that. Take your key fob inside your home, please. But those are the cars they get. They're easy targets. So if I can get in here easily, this is the room I'm going to go to. But if that door is locked, I can't get in there easily. I'm going to move on until I find a door that I can get into. So one way is maybe have a door where you can put everybody inside, have that door locked, maybe throw furniture in front of it, barricade that door so it's much more difficult for somebody to get into. If not, leave the building. Now children, especially smaller children than others, they get very afraid and they hide. They'll run and hide somewhere, or they'll group together, which can make them an easy target at that point too, as we saw in the shooting in Texas earlier in the summer.
So it's not a bad idea to have a gathering point, or even if it's outside, a gathering point outside to get the kids out of there.
Yeah, I would always say if you can get out of the building, get out of the building.
Good.
But if you have 2-year-olds, infants, maybe you have handicap, that are on wheelchairs or can't run. Yes, I definitely have several different rooms where people can go in, lock the door, and barricade. Like I want to have one room, like that's the room, that's it. Well, if the shooter's standing at that door, that room's just got cut off from you. You can't use it. So I would have several rooms designated for that in case an incident were to happen.
So, Officer Klein, we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, I appreciate
And
it.
we will pray Allah, which is God, to protect you, your family, your fellow officers.
I always use it.
And everybody, we can't thank you enough for the service for our community in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.